Well, it is potentially the most jam-packed episode in the history of Elwood City Limits, and what better time to start off the 11th season of Arthur on the Episodic Arthur podcast than with, well, this jam-packed episode. Hi, everybody. I know that we usually do a little bit of a rambling entry, but I'm happy to say if this is your first episode of the show, since we're beginning a new season, and I just wanted to let you know that my name's Will Young, and I have a co-host on the show. He's been with me through 11 seasons, and hopefully 11 plus more, Lucas Mancini. Hey, Lucas.
Hi, that's me. It's me, Lucas. Get used to me. Hello, I co-host the show.
I'm the baby. Gotta love me.
That's right. I am the baby, and Will, you simply must love me.
You are required to love me. Yeah. Once again, it feels like it has been a little bit. It's been, this is how it usually gets at the end of a season here of Arthur. We take a little bit of a break. We collect our thoughts and think about the season that was.
What a season, what a season.
And then we look forward to a new batch of Arthur episodes. And I think there's a lot to look forward to with the 10 episodes that are before us. And speaking of looking back, we're going to be doing a fair amount of that today because, well, along with... Jeez, sorry.
Oh my goodness, you're so excited, Will. You're attacking the microphone, both... literally and proverbially. Look, I'm getting a 1-800 phone call. The whole show, so much for no rambling intro. The show's already off the rails.
Excitement, danger, and spills is what you can expect from season 11 of both Arthur and Elwood City Limits. Anyway, we've got some stuff to talk about besides the season at hand. We've got some Arthur-related news. Not all of it good, but, well, we should be talking about it because I don't think there's any other Arthur podcast that is up to the point that we are. So I feel a little bit of a sense of DUTY to this. So, Lucas, let's start off with the sad news, and that is the fact that, was it this week? No, it was Sunday. It was Sunday. We're recording this on a Thursday. That we unfortunately lost one of the biggest figures in entertainment for as long as we've been alive. Almost, it seems like as long as our parents have been alive. That might be an exaggeration. But on Sunday, we unfortunately lost former Arthur guest voice, Alex Trebek.
That's right. Canadian legend, Will.
Yes. The host of Jeopardy and the host of Riddle Quest in the Arthur world. He unfortunately passed away. He had stage 4 cancer that he was battling very courageously for a long time. He was 80 years old, didn't look a day over 50, looked great until the end. Anyway, that was a very sad piece of news for Sunday, and I know that a lot of people across the world are very broken up about it. There's a billboard that I passed today downtown, and it said, it was something like, I'll take thank you for 1,000. And it was a tribute billboard to Alex Trebek.
You mentioned that he was looking good even though he was 80. And I gotta say, if there's one light in the darkness, usually when someone this famous passes away, people bring up pictures and stuff from when they were a lot younger. And there was all these pictures from when he used to host a CBC music variety show in the 60s.
Oh,
and
yeah.
My word, what a handsome gentleman Alex Trebek has been his entire life.
He was very dashing, especially for his time. He's also kind of one of those guys that he has, of course, visibly aged, but he's always kind of looked the same. I mean, he's had different hairstyles. He's had mustaches and all that kind of thing. He's had different wardrobes, but he's always kind of been very consistent in how you envision him, especially over, I'd say, the last 10 or 15 years. He's always kind of been that elder statesman in the game show game. So we do want to wish all the best to everybody who is missing Alex Trebek, especially his fans, his friends, and his family. It was almost a hallmark of Arthur as a show that began in the 90s to have Alex Trebek as a guest voice. He's been on other shows like Rugrats and The Simpsons. So it puts Arthur in pretty rarefied air in that regard. So less sad news is that we have some new Arthur content to be looking forward to. Not just the new seasons that are coming up, but a new 1-hour TV special that, as we are speaking about this, it will be debuting this American Thanksgiving weekend on November the 16th. That's this coming Monday on PBS Kids. Check your local listings for an Arthur Thanksgiving.
Ooh, I wonder. I wonder what they're gonna do with this. I feel like American Thanksgiving is kind of a not controversial, but it's a divisive topic these days, and I wonder how they're gonna. It's not quite like Christmas, which is pretty easy home run. You know what I mean? So there's difference of opinions around American Thanksgiving. So I'll be interested to see how Arthur tackles it all, if at all.
Well, and of course, given what's been going on in America these past few years, it's a bit of a contentious time. Yeah. Families can end up separated because of disagreements. So I certainly hope Arthur is able to bring some together. That may be a little Pollyanna of me, perhaps. It seems that the idea behind the special is that the kids are going to be preparing for the annual parade. When things start to go off course, Arthur and his friends must find a way to save the Thanksgiving celebration. So I'm sure they'll get up to their usual brand of hijinks, and I'm sure we'll be getting to do a commentary about it at some point. I look forward to watching it. Probably sometime next year as far as our schedule goes.
How are they going to put on a parade with a global pandemic? That must be the thing going awry. It's like, oh no, the parade's tomorrow, and we have to socially distance. They hold the parade on Zoom. Maybe,
or my guess would be that they created something that's a bit more evergreen, but we'll have to wait and see. Who knows? Could be. So that's the main kind of Arthur news tidbits, the things that to add on top of our already full dance card here. And speaking of, actually none of those things. Let's go to the Elwood City Limits mailbag to start off the season. That's, of course, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. First of all, want to shout out, we got another 5-star iTunes review from user DB_Rockefeller. Very appreciative of those 5 stars. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rockefeller.
So let's go first to our first email here. It is from a former guest of the show, Viv, who writes that right now I'm in the middle of listening to kind of the back episodes of Elwood City Limits. The one about where DW goes to the hospital. I got busy with stuff and I didn't have the motivation to listen to this episode. It was recent at the time. It happens. It's all good. But when you said that hospitals are safe places, I couldn't help but laugh because a few weeks ago during the second week of October, I had a horrible experience at a hospital. I thought it was going to be a nice experience where they were going to help me out, but I slowly learned the truth of my local hospital, and it almost felt like I was in a horror movie. Don't worry, I'm better now. But the hospital did nothing to help me with that. The only awesome thing that they did there was letting me go the next day. I'll spare you the details. I'm glad I had that horrible experience because now I want all hospitals around the world to be better and treat their patients as living beings instead of robots. And Viv asks, have you guys ever had a terrible hospital experience?
Well, I guess I'll first to answer the second question. Not really. I haven't. I've been lucky enough not to have to spend that much time in a hospital. I would say that usually when I'm in a hospital, it's a pretty bad scene, not because of the staff or the circumstances of the hospital itself, but just because usually I'm either visiting someone who's ill or maybe like someone who's very sick or like an elderly family member or something like that. So the mood is always kind of dour. And I think that, when we said that they were safe places, I don't even know if we use the term safe places, but just that the moral of that Arthur episode is to kind of trust medical professionals or what have you, or to make kids not freaked out about the hospital. But I will say that hospitals are, mileage may vary, pretty freaky. There's a reason there's so often the setting in like horror movies, like Halloween 2 or what have you. And it's because they give you the heebie-jeebies. People are sick. It's kind of got this cold, sterile environment, the overhead lighting. So they can be certainly spooky in regards to kind of the quality of healthcare you receive. I've again been lucky enough to never have to kind of be on the bad end of receiving poor quality of healthcare. What about yourself, Will?
Not really. I mean, I'm very grateful that the few times I've been to the hospital, everything has gone fairly swimmingly, except for long wait times, which unfortunately you can't really control. But I think that Viv makes a good point. I know that for a lot of people, the hospital is not what they would call a safe place, and depending on where you live or
that's another huge one. Viv's writing us from the States, correct?
Yes.
Exactly. So, I mean, take that for what you will, right? With the different healthcare systems.
Right, and I've had my own partner, my wife, go to the hospital many times and be dismissed for illnesses that were very real. So I know that I don't think controversial is not the right word, but it's contentious to say that it's good that they propped up in this episode, Operation DW, that the hospital is like a safe place and a good place, because it's not for everybody. Like, the worst that's happened to me is really just the symptoms I go into the hospital with. Like, one time I ralphed up a bunch of water on the admitting desk and I felt very embarrassed, but that's just it's not their fault. It's just I was very sick at the time. But yeah, so I think Viv makes an important point, and I certainly hope that everybody listening has not had these bad experiences, and I certainly hope that any experiences that we have in the future in the hospital are much closer to what DW herself experienced. We go now to an email from Sydney. I hope you guys are doing well. You mentioned in your Ming Tsai episode that you believe that Idina Menzel had starred on Arthur, and you're right. Idina was on a later season episode, but not as herself. She actually plays an original character, a therapist for one of the kid characters. It's a great little subplot that helps to normalize therapy as something constructive and positive, especially for children. But the fact that the therapist is voiced by Idina is entirely incidental, except for one excruciating line. You know what? I don't even want to spoil it. Sydney details it. We'll get to it when we get to it. That sounds real bad, though.
Does she like, because of your anxiety disorder, you're essentially, frozen with anxiety. You know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm saying? Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
That's exactly what happens.
Will, I should write for comedy.
Should write for Arthur,
I should write for Arthur, exactly.
As a massive fan of musical theater, I was definitely excited when Idina guest starred, but it also got me wondering why Lin-Manuel Miranda or one of the other notable Hamilton cast members haven't guest starred in the show. The PBS crowd seems like they'd adore a Hamilton cameo, and I can definitely envision an episode in which the kids learn about the value of musical theater to tell important stories from someone like Lin-Manuel or Leslie Odom Jr. Thoughts on this? I think Hamilton's the popular choice for a musical guest spot. It would also be very funny if they went for someone unfamiliar to kids like Andrew Rannells. Then again, this is a show that had Philip Seymour Hoffman playing himself at one point. Can't wait for that.
Whoa, I'm sorry you almost buried the lead there. Arthur Hamilton, I could see it. That seems like a fine fit. It's very PBS. But that aside, Philip Seymour Hoffman, the legend, R.I.P. to the great.
I can't wait for that, man.
What is he doing?
Crap.
Like, is he? Could you imagine? There's a lot of Philip Seymour Hoffman roles that are definitely not kid appropriate. Like, is he reprising his role as like the screaming like phone sex guy from Punch Drunk Love, or is he the sad guy that's got a crush on Mark Wahlberg's character in Boogie Nights?
Arthur, if you don't tell me where Pal is, I'm going to hurt DW. I'm going to hurt her real bad.
Yeah, is he the master from The Master? Is he going to be like, Arthur, have you ever... now, you know what? It's the number one family-friendly show in Halifax. I'm going to not say that joke.
Have you ever stolen anything?
There we go. Yes. I forgot there's many questions he asks that guy in that scene.
Have you ever punched your sister? No. Start again.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for bringing that up. As for Hamilton, I mean, unfortunately, it seems like it might be a little too late for that. It does seem like it would be great. Andrew Rannells is actually a good shout because he actually started as a voice actor in shows like Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is funny when you hear his voice on the Book of Mormon soundtrack, and it's like, oh, that's Mako Tsunami. Mm-hmm. Oh, there you go. So that would be really cool. I would love to see something like that. And Arthur's not afraid to get musical, so it's feasible, and maybe there's still time. You never know. I would never put it past Lin-Manuel Miranda to pop up somewhere where you'd least expect him. We've got one more. It's a little bit of a long one, but it is an interesting story. Unfortunately, it's addressed to Mike and Lucas. Now, Lucas, I don't know who this Mike guy is, but if you've been having a podcast on the side that I don't know about, if you've been doing Elwood City Limits with this Mike character, I don't appreciate it.
I don't know. I mean, I have a good friend, Mike. But I highly
You
doubt.
podcast with him too?
No, I most certainly do not. So I'm not sure who this is referring to. And now I'm really curious. What does he have to ask me and this Mike fellow?
I've been doing plenty of podcasts while you've been having fun with Mike. So this is from Josh. I've been a fan of Elwood City Limits for about 2 years and have listened to all your episodes twice. Couldn't get my name right, though. I'm kidding. It's fine. I think I remember once somebody got your name wrong, so it's like, whatever. Mike, Will, it's, 4 letters. I've also been an Arthur fan since I was a kid, long before the cartoon premiered on PBS. I have something you might want to hear. In 1983, I had my first encounter with a celebrity at the age of 7. Mark Brown visited my elementary school located in Maquoketa, Iowa. Mark Brown, as you'd expect, was absolutely wonderful. Arthur books were a huge deal at our school. I can still remember how entranced I was as he drew pictures of Arthur and DW on a large drawing pad. Remember Buster's dreamy expression when Mr. Rogers sang a lullaby? Well, imagine about 500 kids in a gymnasium looking like that while Mark Brown talked and drew his characters. At the end of the school assembly, he announced a surprise. I'm working on a new book called Arthur's Christmas. As you know, I hide the names of my sons, Tolan and Tucker, in my books, but I'm doing something special with this book. I'm going to hide the names of the 2 Maquoketa elementary schools, Briggs and Cardinal, in Arthur's Christmas. Look for them, okay? When Arthur's Christmas was published in 1984, Mark Brown was true to his word. In the book, Arthur and DW do some Christmas shopping. You can see boxes of Cardinal candy canes in one store. When they visit an ice cream parlor, there's an ad for a Briggs special float. I went to Briggs Elementary, so I'm honored to have my school immortalized in an Arthur book. According to my old librarian from the school, not long after Mark Brown included our school's names in Arthur's Christmas, he had to abandon that clever practice because everyone was demanding it. And Josh also sent us some screenshots from the book.
Ooh, we're going to have to get those up on the Twitter.
Yes, very true, and I'll send them to you as well. If Mark Brown ever hears this message, bless you, I wonder, maybe who knows, maybe he will. So, to Mark Brown.
Okay, yes, Mark,
Booby, if you ever hear this message, Josh Hankemeyer wants to tell you thank you for that. He is partially the reason I have a master's degree in library sciences. So, Mark, you definitely changed Josh's life, as you did ours, too.
My mom's got that same degree, Josh. It's a great degree.
And feel free to hit us up, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com, if you'd like to come on the show for the interview.
Oh, yes, Mark. Yes. Please.
Thanks for the podcast. Keep up the good work. Before you go, I wanted to tell you that my favorite character from the Arthur cartoon is the whiny kid from Mrs. Fink's class. Mrs. Fink, how do we have fun? Kidding. I like Binky. I'll never be able to escape that, I don't think. Thank you very much, Josh. Great emails, everybody, and I appreciate you sending them in. Again, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. One last piece of business before we get to this episode, and this has to do with our Patreon, because, Lucas, I don't know if you know this, we hit a Patreon goal recently.
Whoa. Okay. Now we're talking. What is it, Will?
As of this date that we're recording, we have 60 patrons that are following Elwood City Limits and putting down their hard-earned money for the extra content that we have. And I made a goal that if we ever got to 60 patrons, it might have actually been 50, but we're at 60 patrons now. We have definitely reached the goal where I will be purchasing Adobe Audition to edit the show on. So, but that's all because of y'all that are supporting the show. Couldn't do this without you.
It was previously on Audacity.
It's on Audacity as we speak right now.
So you hear that, folks? If we get to 120 Patreon subscribers, we'll download Ableton. No, I'm just joking. That actually,
what's Ableton? I've never heard of that.
Ableton's like Ableton's like, it's like Fruity Loops. It's like for editing. It's primarily for editing music. Like if you were like cooking up some beats, Will. But no, Audition will do what we need. Now, Will, that begs the question, though. How many Patreon subscribers before you go see the Monster Hunter movie?
Well, I haven't put that up yet because to be honest with you, I was kind of this. I think this is a joke that we made in our Patreon. I was going to put a post up for our patrons to vote on whether or not they would like us to do that. You know, it felt right to ask them.
That's right. Instead of imposing it upon them. See, Will's more of a man of the people. Me, I just want to torture Will and make him go see the Monster Hunter movie, whether you guys want him to or not. That's where we stand.
It just looks so good. Like, I can't wait for that movie.
Yeah, Will's a big Mila Jovovich head, you guys. Mm-hmm. Big fan of the Joves.
The Joves. I mean, I'm kind of waiting to see if it's coming out in the theaters at all.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of movies have been getting delayed to next year. Wouldn't be surprised if that happened as well. So I'm going to wait probably till the beginning of December. If it seems like it's still on track, I will put that poll up. And if it gets enough, sure, whatever.
And hey, if it comes out on VOD, I am watching that with you on Watch Together, brother. We're going to do...
Are we talking commentary? Is
that
what we're talking
my
about?
God. I don't know. The commentary's a lot, but I will certainly watch the Monster Hunter movie with you on video on demand.
All right. Okay. Well, we have a couple of options, so we'll keep that open. So thank you to all 60 of you who are our patrons. That's so nuts. Like, I can't believe that's a lot of people, and we really appreciate you supporting us in this way. Now, I do want to say that I kind of made mention in the last episode that we're getting so many patrons, it's tough to read them all out like in bulk. It's getting to be a large part of the episode. So I think after this episode, what I will do is I will read 10. Like, I'll read 10 or so names per episode, and I'll make them different per each episode. So I apologize if we won't get to your name for a little bit, but I just want to be able to break this up. If you have any suggestions for what our next Patreon goal should be, or anything else regarding the Patreon, please leave us a message on the page or in our Discord, and let us know how we're doing, what you'd like to see more of. If you have any ideas for extra content, we could always use that. And anything else that you would like to see, since you're the one putting up your cash, whether it's $1 or whether it's more, we appreciate it all the same. So this is most likely the last time I will do the full roll call, and we'll start off with the brand newest, the 60th patron, K2 Sonic Fan. Thank you. We also have people by the name of Riley Hendrickson Pike, Kelsey Taylor, Girl Cried Comet, Sydney Long, Bob Yee, Robert Morrison, Allison Archambault, Jeffrey Gao, Hannah Kitten, Mary Archambault, Alistair, Nicholas DeMarco, Valeria, Lawrence, Mason Bishop, Daniel Updegraff, Joe Low Flow, Ursula Cat, Michelle Sprzinski, Owen, Lee Goldson, Lion Dog ZXA, EJ Acra, Christine Lascodi, Greg Hagai, Yoshi, Lily W., Melissa Avalez, Andrew Power, Matt, Pretty Cool Stairs, Marlo Stanfield, Rachel Pearson, Michaela Gibson, Kristen, Sierra S., Kat, Aaron DeFilippo, William, Shayna Bennett, Caitlin Harrington, Kaylin Krogel, Kevin Noon, Jake Bailey, Macy Ball, Riley Stevens, Joe Sue, Christine Wong, Stella, Froppy, Emily K, Shander LaFave Boughton, John Griswold, Teresa, Dan Mike Dawson Silva, Light Relentless, Ian Collis, John DuLong, and Leanne S. Lucas, can you believe that we started this Patreon 2.5 years ago? And 60. I don't think I ever thought that we would ever get past 5 or 10.
Oh, Will, I always believed in the ECL Nation. From the first challenge to make you go see the Sonic movie, or Detective Pikachu, I think was the very first one.
Detective Pikachu, that's
from the first episode of For the Kids, and now we have the Between the Lions episode was a big deal, and I believe in the listeners. I thank them. I'm grateful, but great things are ahead.
You better believe it, and we will always make it worth your while. We're always here for you guys to talk to us whenever you'd like. So thank you once again. Season 11 of Arthur aired from June 25th to September 7th, 2007. Lucas, how old were you June 25th to September 7th in the year of 2007?
2007, big year. Call of Duty Modern Warfare was about to come out. The Orange Box, Mass Effect 1 one of the greatest years for video games of all time, only up against, I think, 1998 or 99 is the other, like, a big year. People are like, the greatest years in gaming. In 2007, I was in grade 7. It's always easy for me to remember because I'm always in the same grade as it is the year. So yeah, I was just beginning junior high. So I have, at this point, long stopped watching Arthur.
So you would have been like 12 years old?
Probably 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
And right near the end of the season is when I would have turned 17. So 2007, I would be going into grade 12. So I would be ending high school. Definitely not watching the new episodes of Arthur either. Long since outgrown it. Now I'm onto more adult shows like Yu-Gi-Oh! So, yeah, I've always been this cool. Not that many notes for this season ahead, but there are a couple of things that I want you to keep in mind. We do have a recasting. So Jason Swimmer, who has been DW's voice for several seasons, is not doing that role anymore. Instead, we have Robert Naylor, who has been the voice of James from seasons 7 to 10.
Which is really interesting because that was the first thing I initially noticed about this episode is the new DW voice. And it's funny because DW sounds a lot younger, to the point where I was thinking that, I was like, I wonder if they had gotten an actual kid. Because it sounds so much like a younger person. How did you feel about the new DW voice, Will?
It's going to take some getting used to, I'll be honest. I liked Robert Naylor as James. I thought he had a very like quiet and meek quality that I really liked. It's worth noting that Robert Naylor would have been between the ages of like 7 and 10 doing James. Now he's 11 voicing DW. That also might not be, like, he might have recorded these earlier, so he might have been even younger. DW did sound really young, and I kind of feel like sometimes when you get different voice actors, I mean, I have to be honest, you know me. I'm so attached to, the original voice actors and stuff like that. It can be hard to retain the same comedic edge that I'm used to DW having. So I felt like the character wasn't as funny in this episode, but it's only one episode, and I'm interested to see how Robert Naylor grows into her. And so I'm looking forward to more DW-focused episodes so I can get a fuller opinion.
Yeah, I feel like to really get a sense of how good someone is at being DW, we got to see her with the Tibbles and Emily and and in those really DW-heavy episodes where you could really make the character shine. That being said, on this first episode, and obviously I'm always going to be biased to the older voice that we're used to, so it's always kind of hard for someone new coming in. That being said, though, I feel like this is the biggest kind of whiplash a new voice has given me. I was really... It's just that old DW voice is so iconic, even more so than some of the other voices. Like, even when they replace Arthur's voice, because Arthur's voice is just kind of... and I don't mean this as an insult, I think this is on purpose. Arthur's voice is a little bit generic, little kid voice. There's not a lot of character to it inherently. You know, Arthur's kind of the... sort of the placeholder for the audience, right? So to make it easy for you to put yourself in his shoes. DW has a very... there's all these memorable DW lines. There's all these memes coming back lately. Like, you're seeing clips on TikTok of just, like, savage DW moments and stuff like that. So that voice is so fresh in my head, and it's, like, so iconic that I couldn't help but be like, ooh, don't know how I feel about this new DW voice. But, again, it is early, like you said.
The only other thing to note is that this is the final season where Arthur will be animated by the company called AKOM Production, AKOM. It's a South Korean animation studio, and they animated seasons 1 to 11 of Arthur. So this is the final season where we get kind of that classic style. When we move into season 12, it's going to look a little different. Now, season 12, just in case you were wondering, that is not when they start doing flash animation. We're still a little bit ways away from that. At least as far as I know. It'll just be a move to a different animation studio next season. But, so, don't get attached to how Arthur looks, because by next season it may, who knows, they might freshen up some of the characters, they might, you'd be using different colors or, backgrounds or what have you. So get a good look, because this is the final season with AKOM at the head of animation. All right, and with that, let's finally get to it. half an hour into the podcast. And like I
Well,
said,
luckily, I don't think we're going to have that many notes about Swept Away.
I tend to agree. But let's get into it. So, Swept Away. That is what we're premiering season 11 with.
It's a beach episode. It's an anime beach episode. We're going to the beach.
The first episode. Has there been an anime that has its first episode as the beach episode?
Yes, but they're usually animes where the whole series is a beach episode.
Is the beach?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's like that show about the girls surviving last season. There was a show about like girls stranded on a desert island. But yeah, usually you got to establish the whole point of a beach episode is you establish the characters. And then you grow to like them, and then they give you a beach episode, usually like right halfway through the season, right when things are about to get really serious, so you could have like some fun time, a quick reprise with your friends. But no, we're starting this off with a beach episode. They're headed to the beach, Grandma Thora and all. That's where the squad's going.
Yeah. Yeah, so they are going to the beach, but we're first talking about time, how sometimes people can have different interpretations of time. So, for example, time goes very slowly for DW. This is where we kind of hear DW's voice for the first time. She's just like, what time is it? Like constantly pestering Arthur what time it is. Whereas somebody like Buster his stomach rules time. So he just goes by complete appetite clock. We see him in the Sugar Bowl. He's feasting on the Harry Mills meatball experience.
Yes.
Which is an excellent name for a sandwich.
He's planning to have second breakfast like he's a hobbit.
Yes, and he's full on eating an entire bowl of pickles, which is a huge flex.
Yeah, I hope he has some like beverages or something to balance out all that sodium. Eating a full bowl of pickles is a great way to speedrun getting a kidney stone.
God. Yeah, and so Arthur is also battling with a giant clock in this cold open, and because he's talking about sometimes it can feel like time's going too fast when you go to a theme park with your friends, or it can go too slow, like when you're taking a test. So, different interpretations of time is what we're to keep in mind in this episode. By the way, on the title card, they used the brain audio for an Arthur title card. Sure hope somebody was fired for that. So it is a beach episode. In fact, right away, Sharky cameo.
That's right, Sharky's back.
Large and in charge, although a little bit less. He's somewhat less cartoonishly large than in the first season.
Actually,
not
only Sharky,
big enough for a bathtub.
Not only Sharky, Buster's shower cap. That's that everybody is scared of looking like an octopus or whatever. That is also still in. I love that they, I'm sure they have like a lore Bible or something. Like it can't just be the same people from seasons 1 through 3 working on these late episodes like 10 years later. So they must just have a really cohesive lore Bible or something that they keep referencing. But this is always great when you see things like Sharky and Buster's hat. Always good for the heads, even 11 seasons in.
So Arthur, Buster, and DW are the main characters of this episode. They are waiting for the water to the beach to be open because the lifeguard is currently noticing that the waves are too choppy for anybody to swim. So they're waiting. By the way, great beach outfit on Grandma Thora. Loved her, like, it's yellow with daisies on it. She's got the hat. She's got the beach dress. It looked very nice, very comfy. So to pass the time while they're, desperately waiting to swim, they decide to build a sandcastle, which they decide to make super cool. They kind of have a little bit of back and forth with DW about exactly how to fulfill the creative vision. But in the end, they make a pretty cool sandcastle. I always wanted to make cool sandcastles, but I just do not have the talent for building like that.
No, when I was a kid, I don't think I realized that I had to use wet sand. So
yes,
the whole thing kind of escaped me. It's been a while since I've tried to sit down and make a sandcastle as an adult. I bet I could do a much better job. I'm a lot more familiar with kind of structural civil engineering. I bet I could design something a tad more sturdy. But when I was a kid, much like yourself, the skill of building a sandcastle eluded me.
Get you an architect friend who knows exactly what they're doing and can make a plan. DW is kind of making a diagram in the sand of how she wants the the sandcastle to look. And yeah, I did have a quick note here. As you yourself mentioned, DW sounding a lot younger. Like she almost sounds like she's like 3. Or like an actual 4-year-old. DW is not supposed to sound like an actual 4-year-old. She's got the vocabulary of Arthur, but she's half his age, which is part of why she's so funny. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see about this one, but not writing it off just yet. So it's basically them pitching in to make this cool sandcastle, which has like a moat and like towers. It's quite the production, but they just can't agree on a name. At one point, Arthur suggests that they call it, or Buster suggests they call it, the Starfish Enterprise.
Yeah, were you excited about that? Are you still watching weren't you doing a TNG rewatch or something?
Oh yeah, I finished that years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, now it's time to start DS9, brother.
I did try. I think it just was not the right time when I was doing it at that point. I think I started it too early after TNG, and then I kind of ran into a wall because I'm to understand that DS9 is a little slow in the beginning.
Yeah, people just skip to the big war or whatever. The
Dominion War.
Yeah, the Dominion War, and people say that's like the best stuff.
But I want to put the work in. So DS9's on the back burner, but I hope to get back to it one day. And they eventually settle on Castle Starfish, which they put the starfish on the tallest spire. They pretty much they have fun making it. They think nothing of it. But in the middle of the night, DW comes to Arthur and asks him, "Well, what's going to happen if we go there tomorrow and the tide, the waves destroy the castle?" And Arthur at first is like, "Well, that's just kind of the way it is. That'll just happen. The tide will interfere with the sandcastle, and that's what happens to all sandcastles." DW also asks, she says that, I think she says like she's sleeping with Grandma Thora, who snores. So Arthur gives her one of his earplugs? Like, swapping earplugs. Gross.
Yeah, keep that kind of behavior in mind for the next episode we're about to watch.
Oh my God. So Arthur ends up having a dream about being one of the co-kings of Castle Starfish. And this is at least probably the most creative part of the episode, where you have all of these anthropomorphized undersea creatures that are in Arthur's domain. I should say, sorry, I think I'm skipping ahead a little. Again, didn't have a lot of notes for this part. They create a moat around the sandcastle in order so that the waves won't destroy it. And DW and Buster both offer like offerings to the sea. Like Buster pours out a can of soda, DW offers it a cookie, and Arthur's just like, "That's just littering what you're doing." Yeah.
Oh, just making their sacrifices to Poseidon, you know what I mean? They're getting into the old school kind of mentality of staving off these waves.
So yeah, we do eventually get the dream where Arthur is the king of the co-king of Castle Starfish, Buster being the other king. And it's, kind of these, it's weird. It's like a bunch of like slugs and like anemones and stuff like that. And some of them have like animal faces on them. And others are just a normal crab with a hat. Looks a little strange. Arthur's getup also it kind of has that charm of like a kid who assembles a costume from a tickle trunk kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like a very like high school play production of like the Odyssey or what have you. It's Casual Friday, Will. Snails can go to work without wearing their shells.
Mm-hmm. That's a decree from King Buster. But then they get word that the castle may be under attack, and they enlist the Seahorse Whisperer, which is DW, to kind of get a report about what could be besieging the castle. So in Arthur's dream, it's almost run over by a wave, but they managed to get the defenses up in time, which is like a wooden board. But in real, unfortunately, they're not so lucky. Their sandcastle does get swept away, right?
Well, this is the point of the episode. I was like, it absolutely does get swept away. But this is about as checked out of an Arthur episode I've ever gotten. I just simply could not be brought to care about their sandcastle. It's good against... I was Team Arthur. Arthur was very zen. He was very, Tao, the Buddha. Listen, the Tibetan monks, they make these like crazy sand sculptures and then they just blow them away, Will. Because nothing is forever. It's not enlightened to try and hold on to whether they be feelings or moments or trying to make things last longer than it's their natural time to last. You got to be able to let go because that's kind of the nature of all things. Anyway, but Arthur's got the right mentality, but then they get this mode idea and then they start trying to play God, stop the ocean, and at that point, I started not paying attention. It's a uniquely, not to get too close into Final Judgments this early in the ep, but it's a uniquely boring Arthur episode.
There's just not a whole lot interesting going on, and of course, in classic Arthur fashion, I should say the whole castle isn't swept away, but a large part of it is. So this is where Arthur starts to become worried, and he realizes that they need to put up more defenses. But in the end, like, it's their last day on vacation, where like at the beach, wherever they are, because they've been kind of staying together. So they try and make more defenses. It just kind of isn't working, and eventually, even Arthur has to give up the ghost of like, it doesn't matter what we do, we have to leave now. And by the time we come back, the sandcastle won't be there. There's actually a very defeatist and a little bit of a sad line where I forget if it's Mom or Grandma Thora, or it might have even been Buster, who are just like, don't worry, Arthur, you'll build one next year and it'll be even better. And Arthur goes, no, it won't. It was so like very little kid of like, no, it's not, like very real. One of those moments where you realize that.
I will say I like Arthur and Buster's fits here. They're very normcore. They look like American Apparel outerwear models or something. Like they look like they just got their like Frank and Oak delivery. It's good looks from both of them. But yeah, and then that's where the episode ends, Will.
Basically, we do have a bit of a postscript where the three of them come back to the beach, and we're told that it's like the week before school goes back in. And I was wondering, so in this kind of final scene, they're all in like rain jackets, and it's clearly like chillier. So what beach in late August is this cold? I know that we've kind of softly determined that, this version of Elwood City is somewhere in like the Philadelphia, Boston area, but like, I can't imagine it gets like chilly around that time there, does it?
I mean, where we live, because we're on a peninsula, we have kind of unseasonably warm fall weather. Like,
no, that's true.
It's not Boston or Philadelphia, but like Central Canada was getting snowstorms by early October. And so they're probably already quite a bit cold by late August, early September, whereas that's kind of our hottest month here in Nova Scotia is September, just because of being surrounded by the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. But good point, good catch. I don't know, maybe it's the evening, Will.
That could be. That could very much be.
Also, they get this picture in the paper of them with the sandcastle, and it reminds me, I think I've brought this up on the show before, but it's like they're just posed with the sandcastle, and I just couldn't help but think about, like, again, second mention of this on the pod this week, Modern Warfare, where it's like, once you beat the game, it's like Heartbreakers and Life Takers, and it's like the picture of, like, Captain Price and, like, all the dudes in front of the helicopter.
I'm not as familiar with Call of Duty, so I'll have to take your word for that. I'm gonna look that up though once we're done here. That is basically the end of the episode. At the end of it, DW makes like a necklace out of the starfish so that they always have the memories or whatever. Anyway, you're right. We didn't have a lot to say about that, and I think if you've watched it. I'm seeing the photo now. I think I understand what you mean. But yeah, so we didn't have a lot to say about that, but I think that may change once we get into the second half of this Arthur episode, right after this.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you, and here's how. Over on our social networks, you can follow us and find the latest updates and some fun photos. Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits, at ECL Podcast on Twitter, ElwoodCityLimits.tumblr.com, and Elwood City Limits on Instagram. You can support us monetarily by going over to patreon.com/Elwood City Limits. If you become a patron for as little as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive audio content like our new PBS Kids show, movie reviews, and sneak previews of upcoming content. Support us as well by going to teespring.com/stores/Elwood-City-Limits-store or search Elwood City Limits on Teespring. Buy yourself a t-shirt, a tank top, or a hoodie with the Elwood City Limits logo or an exclusive design by our friend Josh. Elwood City Limits is available online at libsyn.com/Elwood City Limits, or you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. Is it not on your favorite app? Let us know, and you can always help us by spreading the word, tell your friends, and send us a message either on social media or an email, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your continued support, and now let's get back to the show.
Germaphobia is the name, and we're talking about friends who are a little sloppy. And I think we've all either had that friend or been that friend, Lucas.
Oh yeah. This was. If there's ever been an Arthur episode, as directed by David Cronenberg, it's this one. This one is for the gross people out there. If you're grody, there's an Arthur episode for you. You're nasty ass. This is the one. Germaphobia.
I mean, it's all go figure. It's a Buster episode who we've seen in the past be pretty gross.
It's true. But Buster has a case of rotting food. This has been established. Buster has a permanent fixture of a case of rotting food in his room, which they act like is smell proof, like it's in an airtight container. But come on. So I wouldn't put this kind of behavior past him in the slightest.
It's just really. Buster's a gross little boy in many ways, and the most likely to roll around in the dirt and whatnot. So the opening is Buster's pizza slice falling on the floor, and then his friends being like, "Hey, like, don't eat that." And he's like, "Don't worry, 5-second rule." Which I have to admit, even today, I eat a lot of food off the floor that I probably shouldn't. So I'm not going to throw stones about this particular behavior. So Buster initially says 5-second rule, then changes it to 10-second rule. He does something in the bathroom that made me say, what a waste of... No, I'm sorry. Talking about how when his mom asks him to take a bath, and we see him in the bathroom reading a comic book, and she's like, "How are you doing in there?" Just like, "Almost done." And then he takes the plug out of a full bathtub. What a waste of water! Oh my god!
I know, he needs to watch that episode with Francine trying to do water conservation.
Yeah, really. Like that was recently that we did that. So I mean, come on now, we gotta get a lid on this. Another great one in this cold open is also when they're playing hide and seek. Buster just hides in the trash can.
And they bring that up later on too, about when they finally eventually try to have an intervention for Buster's disgusting behavior. It's one of the things they highlight is that he's got to stop hiding in trash cans.
In the trash.
I mean, that's not only gross, it's dangerous. Well, there could be like hypodermic needles or something in there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not worth it for just a game of hide and seek. So everybody kind of knows, and Buster, like, again, the times we live in, Buster, like, sneezing openly in front of everybody. It's just like, ew, that's not so much funny anymore. So everybody knows Buster is disgusting, and that informs the main thrust of this episode. So Buster's holding his Buster's Wacky Waterpalooza, which is an annual pool party that he has. But then Sue Ellen slips Arthur a note of, "We need to talk to you. Come to the Sugar Bowl after school. Do not bring Buster." So Arthur's kind of the liaison, the Buster liaison. So they all meet up, and they're just talking about how gross Buster's being and how unhygienic, and they don't particularly feel good about going to a pool party if he's going to be conducting himself like this. Genuine laugh here is when they see Buster outside the Sugar Bowl, and he like we hear him like reach into a trash can and be like, "Wow, a harmonica!" one of the greatest Muffy reads. I'm not going to be able to replicate it, but she just says, "Did Buster just take a harmonica out of the garbage?" It's the way she accentuated it was so good.
What's so good about this episode is, like, if you had never been introduced to the character of Buster before, like, Buster's been a little bit out there before, like, he's got his weird food case, but they really turn it up to 11 and just make him, like, disgusting. Like, he is just so foul. He's such a freak in this episode, like, blowing a harmonica that was in, like, the garbage.
It's also something that, like, that's not something that I think of being, like, as a go-to gross image, but when you really, like, when I thought about it, I was like, yeah, ew, what?
Oh, yeah,
like,
there's a
like
lot
a
of...
harmonica, specifically.
They use that harmonica to, like, a great level of, like, just grossing you out. Never before have I considered the, like, disgusting implications of being a harmonica guy.
Yeah. So they essentially give Arthur the ultimatum that, like, he's got to say something to Buster. Again, just got to the harmonica in the garbage lines. Oh my god, it killed me. So he has to talk to Buster about, you know, his being disgusting, or else they're not going to go to the thing. And again, Buster, like, Arthur tries to talk him in the cafeteria. He's like just drinking soup out of the ladle that's in the pot. He accidentally puts his harmonica into pudding and then just takes it out and uses it. And what I also really liked here, Francine just, like, starts screaming. Like, she's so frustrated. She just starts wordlessly screaming,
yeah,
which I thought was really good. I'm kind of surprised that she doesn't do that more. Like, that's, like, her rage just hit a point where words could not be formed anymore.
Well, so it's getting to the point where Buster's bad personal hygiene is starting to affect, like, his friends, right? So it's not only, like, they're not only just worried about him, they're worried about themselves because he's putting his dirty harmonica, like, in the soup. So this is where Arthur pipes up and he decides to intervene. And basically explain germ theory to Buster. Buster's never heard germ theory before. He's like someone from the 1800s or whenever germ theory was invented. But we get this really great moment where I thought this was so funny. Arthur's asking Buster, like, have you ever been sick? And then Buster, like, has, like, a little, like, thought bubble of his mom being like, Buster, you have a temperature, you can't go to school. And then Buster, like, has this, like, nostalgic sigh of, like, yeah, like, he, like, loves being sick at home.
It is what it is. Again, it's like, if you're a dirty little kid, which to an extent we were all pretty, like, filthy little children at one point.
Children are disgusting urchins, Will.
Disease factories. But, you know, there is that kind of thing of, like, depending on how sick you get, you know, when you are sick as a kid, if you're not all that sick, but you're still, like, sick, it can be pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Just like, oh, yeah, I got to stay home all day and drink ginger ale. Now, if I'm 30, if I get sick, man, that sucks. I'm not having a fun time.
One time I was sick, and I got, like, 5 different endings in Shadow the Hedgehog. And that game has, like, 100 endings.
Nice. Did you get that damn Chaos Emerald?
I don't remember. This was years ago. But I remember I was, like...
You must have, if you'd gotten all 5 endings or whatever.
I was, like, sick with the flu. And so,
Oof.
like, I'm, like, doing the sweats, like, I am, like, sick, but I was, like, pushing through it because I was enjoying Shadow the Hedgehog so much, which is a very, by the way, Shadow the Hedgehog, terrible video game.
I have a very strong memory of being sick, like, with flu throughout the day, and then I remember Pokemon the Johto Journeys came on at 6 o'clock, and during the theme music, I threw up into a garbage can and immediately felt better.
I feel
it's one of my big throwing up memories.
This is the second time you've mentioned yakking on the pod this week. This is a rough pod.
Me specifically.
This is a rough pod for people with who are, you know, easily grossed out. This is a nasty one.
I'll put something in the description so you know that there's going to be descriptions of Will's spewing his cookies. They try to educate Buster about germs. They try and tell him that, you know, they show him, like, a microscope of germs. I forget exactly what he calls them. Does he call them, like, green haystacks or something?
Oh, I don't remember.
There's some kind of name he gives them because they're very, like, long and cylindrical. So he's like, they look like this. And it's like, that's not what you're supposed to be taking away from this. We're trying to tell you that you're gross. So Buster, again, he's not thinking anything of it, but he has a dream where he's having his pool party. By the way, so at the beginning of this dream, he does a big like cartwheel roll into the pool. It's a friggin' sweet Sasuke special that he does into the pool.
And then he finds the harmonica at the bottom of the pool. This is like so gross, man. Like everybody's like sitting in this pool, just like all the dirt that's on these kids is in this pool. If it's not chlorine treated, which who knows, it's an above ground pool. So and then Buster like puts his nasty lips on it. And he's blowing the nasty spit water out. But he finally learns, well, the correct lesson in a way, that he can see the germs for the first time. So the germs start to leak out of the harmonica, and then the germs are leaking out of his mouth, and then his friends are like running away from the germs, like it's like some sort of mustard gas or something. And then he wakes up and he becomes a Howie Mandel style germaphobe.
It's like when in the episode where Buster had asthma, and so Francine imagined his like breath as being green.
Yes,
because she thought she could catch it. So it's kind of like that. So Buster has become a germaphobe because of this, and he's immediately like just. I did wonder. There was something in me that wondered if there was any kid that watched this that became germaphobic as a result, because the way that they portray that, and this is done, I think, even before in Arthur and other shows as well, where like we see things from Buster's perspective. There's like, you know, everybody has like a green aroma coming out of their mouth. There's like the creeping strings that like seem to get under your skin. Sometimes he'll picture the germs and they have this little like, like this little laughter.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wonder if this like scarred any child.
Sometimes they makes the germs look like they have like dreadlocks, which is like a little bit weird.
They have this like stringy hair. It's a little strange.
Yeah.
When Buster goes back to school, we get another great line from Arthur. Hey, Buster, I got this really cool book on botulism to show you.
This was like the line of the episode. Like, again, we're just trying to pack as much nasty crap in this episode as possible. Next, we're going to bring up, we got the book on botulism. The writers must have simply been like, what is the most disgusting subject for Arthur to be reading a book on right now?
So Buster's seeing this everywhere. He brought hockey gloves to school because he can't stand to touch anything, but he's just like constantly getting, I really hate to use the word triggered in this way, but appropriately, this is what it is. It's like, it is triggering a germophobia in him. He even goes to the bathroom to like wash out his mouth by drinking the water. Which, like, Buster, sorry, pal, I got some bad news for you about that water. They're doing fractions in Mr. Ratburn's class that day, and I hadn't heard the word numerator in a long time. I had to think about it for a second about what that meant. So Buster is petrified, especially by the food. Like, he double saran wraps the sandwich that he brought himself. He can't bring more than double saran wraps. It's like a dumpling of saran wrap over his sandwich. And he can't bring himself to eat any of the cafeteria food that he normally loves. So we've gone completely the other way on this. We eventually do get to Buster's Wacky Water Palooza. And he is so far gone that when everybody comes over, he's not only got the hockey gloves on, but he has a gas mask as well.
Right, so attention, if this is your first time listening to Elwood City Limits, it is, of course, a podcast starring two straight white guys. And once Buster had this gas mask on, it was like, you know what it's time for? It's the Bane impression corner, baby! That's right. You can't get two straight white guys doing a podcast without our yearly allotted Bane impressions. So, Will, get them out of your system. Let me hear it. Give me what you got. It's Bane impression time.
You merely adopted the germs. I was born in it, molded by it. Till I was but a man.
Molded in more ways than one, am I right? Oh, a little bit of germ here for you.
Molded with a U.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me try. All
right. Go on.
Oh, jeez. They expect one of us in the wreckage, brother. The darkness rises.
Dr. Pavel took your offer in favor of ours. Now we need to figure out what he told you.
Okay, anyway,
Oh, that's right. You can kind of do the Donald
No,
voice. I forgot about that.
that is very, very kind of you to say, Will, but I would hardly call that me kind of doing the Donald voice. That's just me making noises. Anyway, now that the Bane impressions are out of the way, yeah, Buster's freaking out. He's doming out at this pool party. And
I thought doming out had a positive, like, I thought this was like different.
Much like freaking out, Will, it could be both positive or negative depending on the context. Sometimes you're doming out because you're like having a great time, and then sometimes you're doming because something bad's going on.
I see. I was going to say I should use that more, but then it's just like, well, I don't want to kill this word because
No!
if I start doing that, I will. Buster is urging everybody that if they have to go swim, take a shower first, which I must say, you do sometimes go to like pools or beaches or something that have the showers that you can use. I was never a shower before swimming person.
No, always after, though.
But having done it since in my adult life, I kind of like doing it. It's, you know what it is? It just helps you get ready for the shock of the cold water.
Oh.
I'm a big baby about it. I spend 5 minutes going like, oh, yeah, it's cold, yeah. But if I get a shower, it really does help to kind of get my body ready for the water temperature.
See, I always use the shower for after I swim to get all the nasty.
Oh yeah,
get all the either get the chlorine off me if it's in a public pool, or to get all that nasty stuff
Salt water
off if it's a beach or something or a lake.
Absolutely. So Arthur is still having trouble kind of putting his foot down about Buster's behavior, especially now that he's gone the opposite way. So Francine, Muffy, and Sue Ellen decide to confront him. And we do get a thing here where like Buster is frantically like backing away from them as they're trying to intervene. And this is the most erratic and frantic I've ever heard Buster's voice get. Because he's really just like, no, get away. You've got germs on it. It's just like, it's so manic and strange to hear Buster act like this. And it was effective in that way. So Buster runs away. He backs into the pool by accident. And then he falls down in the dirt with his face covered in it. And like a really they use like a pretty cartoony sound effect for when he falls.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what helps to break him of it. He's just like, oh, okay, I think I'm all right. And the next day at school, everybody apologizes to Buster for kind of getting on his case about, you know, being dirty and everything. To which I was like, you know, you guys weren't wrong.
It's
to
true.
Do that.
It's true. I mean, listen. Sure, Buster might have developed OCD, and it's now starting to affect his life and how kind of obsessively clean he was being. But it's certainly, like, he's not going to die at 28 like he was before with his previous habits, right? Like, so, sure, it's true. You do. The moral of the story is you do need balance in life, and that you shouldn't be freaking out around germs as long as you're taking the proper precautions.
Yeah.
But I also think that manic clean Buster was still better off than relaxed, disgusting Buster.
Than pig pen Buster.
Yeah, exactly.
So they extend him a peace offering, which is a brand new harmonica, not out of the garbage. But Buster manages to find a happy medium, which I think is good. He takes it out of the box, he's about to play it, and then kind of gives it a wipe down, and it's like, can't be too careful. So we've managed to marry both sides of Buster, and hopefully he'll be a lot more careful and more conscientious about germs from here on out. All right, what is there to say about Swept Away?
Boring. Will, this might be the most boring Arthur episode ever. A struggle to finish this one. I was bored out of my mind. And I don't know what was happening. I like beach episodes in anime. I've liked beach episodes before in Arthur. It's just like, who could care? They're going to lose their sandcastle. Like, I don't know. Like, and that seems weird to be kind of lobbying that criticism against a children's show, because there's children's shows with far lower stakes than this. But I don't know. I think Arthur sets a higher precedent or what have you. Usually there would be like a B plot. There'd be like some other thing to care about or some other element. But like nothing happens in this Arthur episode, Will. It's so boring.
You're right. And the thing is that we have had a lot of episodes, especially I feel recently, where it's been like, oh, we didn't have a lot of notes for this one. And I think it's not because it's boring. It's just because there's not a lot to say, or it happened, I think, with a lot of the DW episodes where it's like, oh, this is kind of written for like way, way, way below us, like for real little kids. So there's not a whole lot that we can really comment on because it's very surface level. This is just like, man, I don't like you said, like, man, I don't care, and I'm kind of bored. Like, can we just wrap this up? It really, not a strong way to start off season 11. It just felt like a trifle.
Even like their imagination sequence where like Arthur is like a king of the sea creatures. This should be an opportunity to be super creative and like out there. I mean, it's kind of cool that Buster looks like friggin' Slow King or whatever, the Pokemon, with his big shell head. But besides that, I don't know, it's just like so boring.
Yeah, it really is. There's practically nothing really to be said about it. It's not even that it's like especially bad. It's just like there's nothing. There's nothing. It's like air. Like, we're over it. I can't imagine ever watching this again. And this is I can't. I mean, we've watched literally hundreds of Arthur stories at this point, so I don't know if I could think of one offhand that I was more bored by. But I suppose that's the point. When we get to the end of the season, I'm not going to remember this one at all, and for really good reason. Which is too bad, because I feel practically the opposite way about Germaphobia. I thought that this was a very fun episode, and, you know, surprisingly relevant to, again, what we're going through right now. We're all kind of, in our own way, become at least a percentage more germophobic because of COVID-19 and everything that's going on in the world. We're all wearing masks. We're all learning to mind our personal sanitation a lot closer. So it was almost a blast from the past to like see a character be so slovenly as Buster. And it totally made sense for him to be that character. And then the whole situation was funny. Like, it is funny to see a complete reversal in a character like that. There were some funny lines. There were some interesting visuals with the way that Buster kind of saw the germs and everything. I thought Daniel Brochu's performance as Buster was very good, taking the character to like different places sonically that we've never heard him before. And I think it ended up in a way that makes sense. It's like Buster's still the same person, but he kind of tweaked the sliders a little bit. He's still, not, I'm sure in future episodes he's not going to be particularly clean, but he's also not like a complete pig now. So, I'll wait. Let's see. Maybe the next episode he will be, but I liked this. I liked this quite a bit. And so it's too bad we couldn't start with this one. But then again, we would have been ending off with the first story. So Germaphobia, I'd say, gets a thumbs up from me.
Yeah, not since Arthur cut his knee on a rusty lima bean can have I been so viscerally disgusted and just kind of constantly. Usually, like, when Arthur gets gross, they'll have one moment in an episode where you kind of recoil in your seat a little bit. But this was just after another, just like Buster, it was like 120 Days of Sodom or something. Just like Buster engaged in this like just foul stuff. Just this garbage man. So it was a blast, of course. It was so much fun. It was so fun, like, to see what kind of depths Buster would sink to next. It was fun to see his friends have the exact same reaction I was having, to the point where they had to have an intervention. Buster, like, reminiscing about being too sick to go to school is hilarious. Arthur with his book on botulism's hilarious. And then we get kind of the best of both worlds, where we get to see all the comedy that ensues from Buster being so far in the other direction as well. And I think it wraps up pretty well. I thought this was an all-around great episode.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's I mean, I'm hoping that the rest of the season won't be as much of a mixed bag as this one was, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. It's always exciting to get to a new season of Arthur, because it feels like each one has its own little direction that it goes through, its own little kind of arc in terms of episode quality. So who knows? I'm always eager to see if this is the next season that will be maybe as good as the first one, or some of the other great ones that we've lauded over the years. And if you want to hear our thoughts on the previous seasons, we have a bunch of episodes giving our top 5 episodes of each season. So you can go back through Arthur seasons 1 to 10 and find the episodes we like the best. And, of course, we also encourage you to follow along with us, and we'll be with you through the ups and the downs, as with this episode. So that's going to do it for Elwood City Limits. Thank you very much for listening. We're so happy to be here for Season 11, and we're also happy to be serving our patrons, because next week we've got a big release coming up. This is going to be another landmark episode of For the Kids, as our PBS Kids podcast returns. It's Lucas's pick, which means Dragon Tales is going to be served up.
Muchos gracias.
Senor Quetzal, you know, that, Ord, he's the biggest, not so brave of heart, and, well, you'll have to tune in to see if I remember the whole theme song. So that's going to be happening next week. Also coming up on the free feed next week, a little bit of a present for everybody who's been patiently waiting for us. We are going to be posting our interview with former Arthur voice actor Dallas Jokic. I'm very excited for you to hear, and very excited for you guys to have some feedback about that. So if you have anything to say about the show, about us, about Arthur, about any of the content we're putting out, elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. You can also get in touch with us over social. And if you're a patron, you can hop in the Discord and let us know what's what, or on Patreon as well. Then in 2 weeks, we will be back for another episode of ECL. We're going to be talking about the episodes Arthur Sells Out and Mind Your Manners. Always knew that Arthur was a sellout. He's got that stink all over him. We'll just have to see what kind of cause he's willing to betray. Otherwise, great to have you back once again. And hey, man, I'm happy that we could all reconvene in, let's just say, more positive political circumstances. And not in such a dour mood. So there is a little bit of hope in the air as we get ready for Arthur Season 11. We're glad to have you with us on the ride. So that's going to do it for Elwood City Limits this episode for this week. My name's Will Young, and for Lucas Mancini,
Greenhouse gases in the atmosphere.
We'll see you next time.